Now, sunshine notification. In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act, PL Chapter 231, Chapter 11 of the Public Laws of 2020, all requirements have been met to follow this meeting, to allow this meeting, this open space committee meeting. Adequate notice of this meeting has been posted. Tara, if you would go to the attendance, please.
Sure. Arnie Schmidt.
Here.
Bob LaCourte.
Here.
Bill Connell.
Here.
John Moon.
Here.
John Hurling.
Here.
Vanessa Jones. Here. Councilmember Potasnik.
Present.
Okay. Mayor Kramer's here. He just stepped down for a second. David Triggs.
Here.
Mary Laukow. Here. Bob Bornlocker.
Here.
And I think I might have missed, did I miss anybody? No? Okay, Stephanie called out. She's not going to make it today because she's not feeling well, so she won't be here. I think we're covered. That's it. And me.
That's it.
Yep.
And Bob will be here later.
Oh, and Bob is coming, yes, he'll be here.
Yeah, he
later.
should be here
Yep.
momentarily. He's called me twice and he's on his way here.
He might get lost along the way.
Well, he might. It's
Could
dark
happen.
out there. First opening to the public for discussion. Can I have a motion to open to the public?
I'll make a motion.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? We are open to the public. Do we have anybody here from the public that would like to speak? Or forever hold your peace?
Why are you guys looking at me?
I'm
Because
looking
you're looking at the public right now.
I'm looking right at you.
Nobody ever expects you to be quiet.
I'll make a motion to close the meeting.
We have a motion to close the meeting. I have a motion to a second.
Second.
Or any discussion? No? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is closed to the public. Did we get the minutes? We got
I
the-
didn't.
No minutes.
I did
There
not
were-
get
there were
it.
no
They didn't
minutes.
come out, okay.
Okay. Guess I should go to the regular agenda and say noise cancelling. Next on the agenda after the minutes, because we don't have any now.
Hell.
Why you gotta hurry? What?
We don't have minutes.
There were no minutes.
There were no minutes.
There were no minutes.
Bill is in major
Submitted.
training for his 160-mile bicycle ride.
Okay, yeah, Bill
That
had
wasn't
mentioned
my
he-
excuse.
Yeah, he just was busy this time. We'll get him on next time. Right, Bill? Can we introduce, I'm sorry, I should have introduced you, Vanessa. I'm so sorry. Is it okay if we just take a minute to introduce Vanessa?
As the vice chair, acting sheriff? No.
I don't know if you all remember, Vanessa was at our last meeting. This is Vanessa Jones. She's our new member. She's replacing Chuck Martin. He resigned because he moved out of town. But Vanessa's the chairperson of the Trails Advisory Committee, and she does an excellent job. So I think we're lucky to have you. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself a little, or...
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. You know, I lived in Franklin for 40 years, graduated in 1990 from Franklin High School. Just love our town and have been so appreciative of every time I drive by those open space signs. Just really, really appreciative of that being us. You know, and to be able to say we're 37% preserved open space. People who know me get sick of hearing me say that. But happy to be part of a committee that's going to work to even increase that number. Like, that's amazing. And happy to support you and learn from you on this path. So thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Bob, I just want to make sure you're not having a heart attack there. I see you.
I'm having a
He
heart
heard when
attack when
she
she said she
graduated.
graduated in 1990, and I'm like, well. I did sort of have a little bit of a heart attack. Bill will tell you. Are you going Saturday, Bill?
It's gonna be a game day.
Oh, is this a reunion or something?
Yeah, 40th.
You wouldn't go to your 40th?
That's it?
Yeah.
I went to my 50th.
Yeah, what about you?
Graduated in 80.
Then that means you're older than me, so.
That's what I mean.
There you go.
My 50th was during COVID, so we didn't
Was
have
it? You
it.
didn't have it?
Not that I went to 25, 10, or 15, but
Are you all Franklin graduates?
No.
No.
Billy and I went to Immaculata.
Oh, okay.
It was a relevant question, though.
Yeah.
was.
I'm like, am I among fellow warriors? I just want to know.
My wife's
There's a couple here.
Way before you.
Okay.
all right, so the next item on the agenda is the financial report. Tara?
Yep, I submitted the financial report as part of the agenda packet. There's copies on the table if you want. I also have it up on the screen.
Could you swing one by me?
Does anyone have any questions, or did you get a chance to review it?
Ask questions, Greg, this
I would motion to approve.
Worked hard for it.
Okay, David, okay.
Mr. Wright, are you looking for Councilman Wright, are you looking for a copy?
Yeah. I just motioned to approve, so.
Second. Any discussion on the financial report? Questions? Comments?
No, I just gave him one.
Seeing
I
none?
motion to approve, so.
Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the financial report as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Financial report is accepted.
Thank
New
you.
business, detailed review of improvements and maintenance requested by the Meadows Foundation at Historic Properties.
Okay, so at the last meeting, we kind of, we had a presentation, we talked about the inventory that we put together with Sue Ann Durkak from the Meadows. And I just wanted to kind of leave it there and see if you all had a chance to review it or had any further questions or wanted to discuss it any more detail. There has been a few things done, let me just add. I asked Carl to update the spreadsheet.
Gentlemen,
He just
can
hasn't
you
had a
keep it
chance.
down there, please? A little bit of respect for Tara here.
He hasn't had a chance to update it, but he did let me know that he got some of the trees that were requested have been taken down. There were some piles of brush that have been removed. We were at the garden at the Van Wickle house on Saturday, and Terry was there actually too. We planted 416 plants there at the garden at the Van Wickle. Oh, Vanessa, you were there. And so we got that done, so that garden area is all taken care of. It's been weeded, replanted. So some things have started, some of the easier things, removing some of the trees, the brush, getting those plants in. So I just left it on there in case anyone had questions. I think at the last meeting I said if you had a chance to review it and you wanted to forward me any questions, I didn't get any, but if anyone has any?
Bob, just to let you know, we've been through public comment. There were no comments. We approved the minutes. We're just finishing up on, we finished the financial report. We approved that. Now we're on number 6, new business. And I turn it over to you.
Thank you, regarding.
Thank God.
It was zipping right along, buddy. It was zipping right along.
And with that comment, Artie, will you continue on?
It's a little painful, Bob. Step up.
All right, new business,
So we got the first one down, and I don't know that.
You're on B.
We're on B.
You're on B.
If no one wants to talk about A.
Oh, no, I do want to talk about
Well, then
it. 'Cause
start talking.
Now we start slowing down. So I have some questions here. I'm trying to understand this. So the Meadows Foundation, and I guess I'm talking about mostly the site down at the end of the Mott Lane, where a lot of damage, a lot of money has to be put into it, maybe $500,000, $1 million needs to be put into it. Bob, you can...
Depends on how far you want to take it.
Well, that's the question. That's part of the question. I want to preserve these places as much as most people want to. But to put money, a hefty amount of money into a property that in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, when the next 100-year storm comes, which it will be sooner rather than later, it's like throwing good money after bad. So I just have, one question that I have is, there are rules to fix this place up going by historic rules.
Correct.
So one option is to say, and I don't know how much money we would get from the state or from the county, or if it's all
We've
from us.
gotten money from both, and there's money in reserve from those sources to continue the stabilization project of the building.
So I don't know what the options are. I don't know if there's a way of saying, look, to whoever it is, the regulators of this, the people that are in charge of this, who can tell you what to do. If we were to say, look, we don't want to throw good money after bad. So if we do it part historic and part not historic,
Can't, but go ahead.
there's no way.
Nope.
Well, and that's my thing, that I hate throwing good money after bad when we know
Me
something's
too.
gonna happen like this. If we could do it halfway and let them know, and there's absolutely no way that you can do something like that. Because
I
the
mean,
option.
when you say halfway. So the answer to, I think, to your question, Arnie, is that you can't do restoration work that's not in conformance with the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines on historic structure restoration. So things that would need to be done inside the house as it relates to restoration. For instance, if there's wood trim around a door, you can't take off the wood trim and then go to Home Depot and buy the plastic trim and just put it around. The woodwork would have to be done in accordance with accepted historic preservation requirements.
These federal?
Of well, because it's on the National Register.
Right.
So it's not only the state, it's not only State Historic Preservation Office, but it's also the federal government. It's on the Federal Register. So you have to conform with the Secretary of the Interior has all of the volumes that on how you maintain and restore historic structures. The option, and it is always an option, is you do nothing. So you do the minimum to stabilize the building and protect it as best you can from the elements and things like that, which is what we have done with other structures that are on the federal and state registers. The Studolph Gunther House on South Middlebush Road was mothballed in accordance with the standards of the State Historic Preservation Office. That was done with a grant from County Historic and Cultural Heritage. But just remember, like, mothballing the Studolph Gunther House cost about $300,000. And in essence, that's just buttoning up the building so the rain doesn't get in anymore. It required an archaeological dig around the perimeter of the house, and so nothing comes without a cost. The building currently is standing and was, I won't say there was any restoration. There was, let me rephrase that. There's rehabilitation and restoration, okay? The building was rehabilitated to mitigate the flood damage so that it doesn't have mold and things like that. There's still the structural stability of the house, and there is grant money that was obtained by the Meadows Foundation to work towards that. There was also money budgeted by the Township several years ago that still sits as capital money budgeted to stabilize the structure so it doesn't fall into it on itself. But a full restoration of the house is probably beyond means at this particular time, especially when you take into account the other houses that we own.
Are we allowed to elevate the house?
No.
Are we allowed to what?
Elevate it? No.
So it's forever on the historic
It is.
list. There's no way
You
that
can't
can
get
be
it delisted, no.
Can't get
Once
it.
it's on, it's on.
And if we were to go in there and put sheetrock up and do things like lift the foundation, we would be in violation of something.
State Historic Preservation would say you're in violation of both state and
Yes.
federal regulations and remove it.
And remove what we did.
Yes.
So what's the opposition of just mothballing it then?
I don't have a position. I'm the township manager, not an elected official. I'm just telling you, this is the circumstances regarding that house as it relates to its position and proximity to the river and flood damage.
Yeah.
All right, I don't argue with you that the likelihood of it being flooded again is 100%. It's not even lower than 100%. It will flood again. When? That's up to, if you believe in a supreme being, that's up to that person. If you don't, it's up to Mother Nature. But I can't argue what the point that you're making.
See, I have a problem with not almost close to restoration, because You go to any other state surrounding us, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Rhode Island, New York, they take care of their historic properties. New Jersey doesn't. And I have a problem with that. New Jersey doesn't care about their historic properties. They really don't.
I think
So-
they care, they just don't want to put the money up.
They don't care. They can find money. Plain and simple.
So
Okay.
Rockingham is still on the registry and it's been moved.
Because it was, well, it's on the registry and it has been moved. And I'm not saying you couldn't move the house. I think that the cost associated with moving that house and the stability, the structural instability of the house probably would be of great cost. And the costs associated with moving Rockingham were shouldered primarily by Trap Rock, because it was moved several times as a result of the encroachment of mining activities by Trap Rock, and Trap Rock foot the bill to move it, and actually it is Trap Rock who donated the property where it sits now.
My point is, if it can be moved, then why can't we elevate?
Because we were told that by state historic preservation that they can't do it. Yes,
Yes.
we asked after it was flooded,
Okay.
could it be elevated? We were told no.
What about,
Probably as a basement.
like, this, a moat or a wall or something to
So there's many
surround
different
it?
flood control techniques that you could explore. I don't know whether they,
Alligators.
there's inflatable walls, there's all these different things. Whether or not they would be effective here, I don't know, and what the cost would be, I don't know.
Is it something that could be explored?
You're the Open Space Advisory Committee, you could explore it.
Yeah,
Is it something that could be explored? Anything can be explored, Arnie. I think that's a rhetorical question, at least
Yes.
I hope it is.
Yeah.
So you answer your own question. Can
Yeah.
it be explored? Sure. Anything can be explored. The issue here is, I don't know that we're talking about that right now. We were talking about a list that was provided. It prompted questions from you that I certainly am not the person to answer.
I'm looking for a way
No, I know.
to be able to do it, but then not have to worry about in 5 years, we're throwing good money after
Well,
them, we get to do it again.
so I understand that you don't want to worry about it. So in the Wyoming Valley of Pennsylvania, which is the Susquehanna River that runs through Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, large levees were installed as a result of the 1972 floods, all right? And in 2010, Hurricane Lee came through from the south and came up through the valley, and the levees that were constructed did protect Wilkes-Barre like they were intended to do, but surrounding towns, the levees were breached and there was massive flooding as a result of it. So no, you can try to build things to make it so that nothing ever happens, but there's no guarantees, right? So you talk about throwing good money after bad. I don't know whether that would be good money after bad or not. You're talking about, hell, the Army Corps of Engineers spent how many hundreds of millions of dollars, and a train sits on a track in Bound Brook, and a gate doesn't get closed, and part of the town still floods, right? So who's going to inflate them, right? When the floodwaters are coming, I don't think the members of the Meadows Foundation are going to be out there with the compressor filling them up with air.
Well, why not? No, I've had my say on this, and I just wanted to present everybody.
And I think all of that you said is valid. I just don't know what the answer is, and I don't know that I'm the one to give the answer.
No, I just wanted to hear if,
Yeah.
who else had, I knew that Bob would, and I agree with you that we don't do what we should, and I would love to, but, again.
I have no problem in just, looking into it a little bit if you kind of would. Don't spend a ridiculous amount of time, but I like to see some options rather than just let it just go down, because that is a pretty important house.
Yeah, yep.
It is a
So-
pretty property.
Yeah. So look into options for types of flood control projects, or a study that would probably have to be done, I would assume, first to do some type of flood control there, so look into some options.
How high, what is the flood height? When that floods, what is it It goes all the way up to Eastern Avenue, doesn't it?
Not there, it doesn't.
Yes.
But how
Does
high?
it does not go
It's a
all the
little
way up
higher
to
there.
Eastern Avenue there.
So like, if
It
you-
doesn't flood at the Montlake.
How high
Further down.
how high is it at the house when it gets to the house? Is it
Well,
3
it's-
feet up
it's
on the
probably-
wall?
No, it's a little bit higher than that. It's probably
Yeah.
about
It's up
4 or
to-
5 feet.
Yeah, it was up to 19 inches on the first floor. The first floor is up several steps. Both basements were completely filled. There were fish on the
So-
side of the house.
So, and just to put it in perspective, you know, so, and I appreciate it, so 19 inches on the first floor, the house doesn't sit very high off the ground. Basically, the first floor is nearly at grade. So you're talking about 20 inches of water, you know, that were, you know, above the
Table height.
floor. Yeah, I mean,
And we don't even know if we were to build a wall around it, it's possible the groundwater is coming up from.
well, there's no
inside.
doubt that it is. The sump pumps continue to run constantly now, and it's not
Right.
underwater. So there is groundwater issues there.
Yeah.
Because when you're in close proximity to the river like that, inevitably, that will happen. It's not
No,
the
but
canal that's the problem, it's the river.
When was the last time that the request was submitted to make it higher?
Hurricane Ida 2 years ago.
Make it higher as in lift the building up?
Yes.
The other thing is, the engineers who have been involved in all of the work on the stabilization of the house are not confident that you would be able to raise the house.
But you're saying that a request was made at one time
There
and
were discussions about it, yes.
there was discussions about it, but the request wasn't made?
The state was contacted about
Okay.
raising it from our insurance company, and the insurance company was denied.
Okay.
We have flood insurance on the house. As you know, I think it was on the bill list,
Yeah.
on the finance report last meeting.
Bob, you mentioned the last meeting about the insurance, our flood insurance, and the flood insurance company, the insurance company is balking at giving us any money because we're not.
What they have, well, exactly. So the insurance company has said that things that have been damaged in previous floods and were not replaced with new construction materials will not be covered under a future insurance claim.
Yeah.
That's what insurance companies do. They don't care that it's something historic.
Right, so we get.
And then they raise your rates.
Actually, our rates went down because actually the property is now in a different flood zone, and it actually went down. I don't know how, but it did.
So if that is the case, why are we carrying flood insurance on it then?
Because it paid out $150,000 to mitigate the flood damage this time.
Well, I'm saying down the
So,
road.
but no, mitigation is different than replacement.
Okay. All right.
It could have paid more. $150,000 wasn't a cap on our insurance. It could have paid more, but it would have paid for things like sheetrock replacing the mud walls, or new wood flooring replacing the old plank flooring that was original to the house. Well, we can't replace the floors with that's the kind of thing you can't do. So that's the catch-22.
It is, that's a problem. There are things, like I mentioned before, that we can do, like, you know, help with some of the landscaping projects and like things we can do to kind of help like get some items on the list done, like the garden. At least we can kind of start there. And then maybe as we get to a point down the road where we can start thinking about it, I'll look into this flood control study and project.
The
Because
issue,
it's a big list, you know?
the issue is we have other houses too.
No, I know, and
Yeah.
I was focusing obviously on the Van Wiffle
Uh-huh.
house.
Yeah,
And I know there's others, you know, with the roof,
yeah. Yeah.
but that's,
And we also have Tulip Wood sitting on Hamilton Street.
right.
And
That's
that was-
not a Meadows house.
Yeah, and that was an exhaustive list, so when we went to the site inspection, it was like everything. So it's like understood that that's a huge list and a lot to accomplish, and we have to kind of go through it and see what can we get right now that we can do at DPW, and then what can we, you know, prioritize.
And to the Meadows credit, they also do pursue grants and all of the funding to do things. So I mean, the Van Luce Dam House is having restoration work done, including HVAC system is part of that process of work at that house. And that, I mean, the window replacement and that type of restoration work is being done under a grant. And that's been done at Hageman, both on the barns and the house. And where we can, I mean, some of you will remember this discussion was had here at this committee several years back, so the roof was replaced on the Hageman house several years ago. And the roof that was on the house at the time was three-tab asphalt. And there was a push to replace that with slate roof, which had previously been on the house before it had been removed and replaced with asphalt shingles. The shingles that are on there now are a compromise. They're not slate, they're not three-tab asphalt, they're imitation slate that, I gotta be honest with you, if you're standing on the ground, it's pretty hard to tell that they're not slate tile.
You cannot tell if they're
That's right. So that's a cost that was borne by the Township Open Space Trust. And
with help from the Historic Commission.
but the point being that there's those types of things that are allowed. Where you have something that was previously done before the house was listed on the register, you can replace in kind. If you have a house that's on the national and state registers that has asphalt shingles, the federal government and the state don't say, well, at one time 100 years ago it had slate, you have to put slate on the roof. So those kind of things can be done.
But those three houses don't have the same situation as.
No, they don't flood the way this one
Right,
floods.
and so those are really.
Agreed. No, they have their own unique problems.
Right.
Doesn't have a chronic condition, it just has conditions.
Doesn't have a Mother Nature issue.
It's just a sign of the times. I mean, that place has been there for centuries, and now 100-year flood is no longer a 100-year flood.
Well, and what the thing, and we've had this conversation, and I know I've had it with others here. So one of the things that you have to take into account, one of the things you have to take into account is the floodplain itself. So what has happened is, so the house was built in 1722-ish, right? And in 1722, there was, the floodwaters of the Raton River were spread out over a vast floodplain. Well, that floodplain now doesn't exist, right, because it's been developed, and you also have an incredible amount of impervious surface that doesn't absorb rainwater that previously were just open lands, right, that the water, the rains were absorbed by it. So but now it's 2023. This is the world we live in, right? So it's not the same. And while there's I am a believer in climate change, and we're getting more rain, and anyone who doesn't recognize that, I don't think has their eyes open or doesn't go outside their house very often when it's raining. And we are experiencing it more and more. So that's why I'm comfortable saying that flood will 100%. That house will flood again. And it will flood for everyone in this room more than once in our lifetime.
So is there anything that we have to do right now, other than making the recommendation?
No, I think that you still all have the list, and I think that as you have thoughts about the list, you should certainly email Tara with what your thoughts are. She's in close communication with Sue Ann, as am I. I mean, I talk to her fairly often, and we're going to continue to move through those projects on that list that we have an obligation to do, and we do. And the ones that require outside agency approval are going to take longer than the simple ones. The fact that, and I'm throwing this up because I don't have the list in front of me and I don't remember, a new furnace and air conditioning unit in the Van Lucidam house, I think, was on that list.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be included in the capital budget as part of the historic portion for 2024. Now, those are the kind of things that we have to do. The house has to have an HVAC system, not only for the comfort of a caretaker who might live in the house or people who visit it, but for the structural integrity of the interior plaster walls and everything else. So these are,
Yeah.
when you have to like kind of sort of manage all these, you learn more than you ever wanted to learn about what it is to have a historic house. You never want to own one. Now that I
You don't
know.
own a farmhouse either.
Yeah.
David, I think you'd
So I would not, I used to
like
want to
your
own one, I don't
pew
want to
or
own
your
one.
It is a
recommendation
headache.
It is a headache, so.
before.
One thing that sticks
Well, I
out
didn't
in
have a
my mind on that list
recommendation.
was
He
the
did.
roof on the caretaker
Whatever
house.
he brought up.
So that's a modern
My point is
structure
that
that
flooding
is
something
not
that's
required under
just
any of
dealing
the, so we have to do that.
I think the thing that said it was leaking, I think that's a priority.
So we have to replace the roof on the carriage house at the Wyckoff Garage
House.
Yeah, yes, at the Wyckoff
I
Garage.
have a concern about the Hagman property, and during her presentation, she mentioned about birds getting in and dying. and
So
they
the
don't
birds have
know-
been getting in that
they
barn
don't know
since
to
the
get
barn
out.
was built. I understand her
Yeah.
concern. I've been upstairs in the barn. I understand that that's a concern. I don't like to hear about birds dying, but birds have been probably dying in that barn since it was built.
What are they getting trapped? That's the.
Well,
impression I
there's
got.
there's
They
openings
can't
in the
get out.
building that they can fly in, and then they can't fly out because unfortunately,
They get bigger.
the words bird brain.
Right.
So probably, there's always some truth in things like that. I don't think that they're the most intelligent of animals, so they get stuck.
Well, it's a hazmat issue, since she said, because it's so bad now.
Yeah.
So it's a big cleanup, but I was just my preference about wildlife. We don't set traps for them, or like they can't get out, like people,
Yeah.
like crab traps, that trap all these animals. Like if they get in, they can't get out.
Right.
Just, for me, that would be like a high priority to
I think we need
Yeah.
to put up signs.
take care of
this
that
way
before
out.
spring.
Yeah,
They
so
come
that, like Bob mentioned, that's been going on a long time, and the main issue is that the windows, because they're like older windows, they're basically transparent to a bird. So they come in through this high window, but then the window is up so high, when they try and get out, they keep like smashing into the wall, and
They
that's
break their
basically,
neck.
yeah. So that's the problem, so that was one thing she wanted to see, is there a way we can like kind of have some type of way that the birds can get out?
Or can you cover the windows with something?
Over the window.
Or cover the windows,
Yeah.
that's the other option. Now, we do have to be careful with the
Material.
windows, yeah, so we can't put any reflect, that's the problem.
What
So
item-
that's where it is, yeah.
What item are we on the agenda?
The
Item one.
Meadows Foundation.
It is 6A.
Oh,
Six,
so it's maintenance, okay, I thought it was.
So I looked online at the National Park Service. They did put out an update in 2019 about raising historic structures because of climate change. So I sent it. So
Oh,
maybe
perfect.
they changed their mind. Maybe the DEP will change its
Yeah,
mind
that would be
as well.
great. That would be great.
I
think with
if it's
the,
raising.
I agree,
36
yeah.
inches isn't that much.
It's if the house, with that house in particular, we have to make sure that it can be moved successfully
Yeah.
without, that's really the problem with that one. But I can see how they would be able to move other houses, but that house in particular is, the floors are really, they're kind of like coming up, and the basement's always full of water, so it's been difficult. But I'll
You
read it
moved the
and see.
schoolhouse, even though it's
Yeah.
smaller.
I will look into it and see
Which
for
school?
sure.
This
And I
one?
don't think that this,
Wasn't on
I
any-
think that this house is not in its original location. I don't know when that happened,
Okay.
but I remember reading that that's not the original location of this
I
house.
remember something.
I think it
Which
was
house?
slightly moved, right?
Van Wickle, now it's Van Dyne, Van Wickle or something, right?
Not to my knowledge. No, there was
Just the name
confusion
change.
between the two houses.
No, I read about
The
it.
Van Wickle house actually is on the Rutgers Prep property.
That was
That's
on
the-
Rutgers Prep.
that-
This is Van Dyne
I don't know
House.
that, yeah, I don't
was
know
the-
that this one was ever moved.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It
Yeah.
was like the ownership was in question, not the house, like location, but who actually owned
Who
which
lived there in
house.
1722.
If there's no more questions
Great
on this
mystery
topic,
of
it's the time to
Franklin.
move on. Grant, that's sustainable grant from New Jersey for Naaman Williams Park.
Okay, so, we've been working on the green infrastructure grant for the Naaman Williams Park. So just to kind of quickly go over, we got a $20,000 grant from Sustainable Jersey back in April to implement some green infrastructure strategies and also to conceptualize a woodlands trail. So the woodlands trail is phase 2. Right now, we're working on phase 1, which is the green infrastructure. So Vanessa actually had gone out in August. I think you went out sometime in August. She took some pictures of the baseline. I went out on September 19th and I took a bunch of pictures, and then I kind of put some ideas together about where green infrastructure could be. And then we went out as a group, so it was me, Vanessa, Ted Chase, Chris Gonda, he is from our Trails Advisory Committee, and I feel like there was Jignasha. She's on our Trails Advisory Committee. She's a science teacher at the Thomas Edison Energy Smart School. So we had this group together, and we basically walked it and showed, this is what I'm thinking, and what do you guys think about these concepts moving forward. So I'll just put it up on the screen. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it's lengthy, because I'm just long-winded, I think. I've learned after a period of time trying to understand that. But basically, what I just talked to you about is what I'm going through right here. So I'm going to skip past it. I want to just show you some pictures. So when I went on the 19th, I basically identified some areas, and then this was like my concept idea, and then I'll show you how it turned out. So just so you can see the picture, Area A, which is where we started off, you can see right, that area over there is the pool. Over to the left of it is the playground. My mouse was a little slow up here. And then you can see the trail kind of goes along, and now we're kind of going up towards the parking lot by Matilda Ave, which is where the square is. Yep.
Gazebo.
Another playground gazebo.
Pavilion.
That one is the picnic pavilion. The gazebo is actually over at the beginning there.
Right. So this is really the worst part in terms of ponding and flooding. We went after a heavy rain, but basically just to show you the picture, so that's a fitness area equipment, and you can see in the distance is the playground that's towards Matilda Ave. That fitness area equipment, that looked like that on the day Vanessa went, it looked like that on the day I went, and it looked like that on the day, so it seems to be like that most of the time.
I was there at the end of July. It was on a Friday, and there was an event on Saturday, and I had the Public Works Department go in and squeegee everything off the trail because it was a walking, like a fundraiser walking event so it's just.
It happens there, yeah.
And it's the bordering areas, lowland,
Very.
deciduous wetlands.
Yep.
So it's just saturated earth.
It's saturated
Does
most of
it
the
perfect.
time, yeah. This little path that's here that goes into the woodlands, it's a little hard to see on the picture, but it's always this really thick mud. So there's evidence there that is underwater a lot. This is more views of the path, so you can see there's always puddling along that area of the path. And then the
in the winter,
interesting.
that's ice.
Oh yes, and in the winter it turns to ice, which is very true, yep. Then if you look at the woodlands, so you can see, it's hard to see, but
It's
there's
sitting
lots
there.
of standing water all the time. So all of the visits we've been on, standing water.
How
So
bad
then-
is the mosquitoes?
The mosquitoes, are not pleasant at all, especially when I was there, and I actually walked past a lady, and she was like, are you, because she could tell I was taking pictures, and she was like, it's always wet here, and there's a ton of bugs. That's what she said as we went by, so. This area here is the other area we were looking at, and it's a little bit further up, so now we're really kind of focusing on the area by the playground and the pavilion, and the parking area. So again, I kind of told you about this, just skip past. So you can see the Big Belly garbage can there, so you can see that there's mud marks on the garbage can. So that kind of gives you an idea of like where mud is kind of getting and water splashing. This is where there's a neighbor's property, and their fence is right there, and you can see right in front of their fence, and in the woods, there's standing water, and that always appears to be there as well. Also some evidence of some mud there as you're going towards the parking lot, and then this here is kind of just another long view of the puddling that's happening. Also the neighbor's fence, same thing, you can see some of the mud lines there. This picture in the middle doesn't really do much to show you as a picture, but I walked through it and it's just completely drenched between the two, so it kind of shows you where the water's coming from. The other area that I noticed that was having problems is right by the baseball, I say field, but it's a diamond? Okay, yeah, field. Oh, that's softball?
Softball field, yeah,
Oh.
softball.
Interesting, okay, I'm like, oh, the baseball diamond, okay. So this area right by the dugout and by the baseball field also has some areas of flooding or ponding. The fitness equipment here is not submerged, but it's definitely really, really wet at the bottom. Someone was there trying to use it and they were just like, as they walked by. But you can see here the muddy area down by the bleachers. And the next picture I'll show you. This picture on the right here, I'm standing, basically my back is to Mark, and I'm facing and you can see there's a slope going downhill, and the water is just running straight to there, to where the dugout is and where the bleachers are. And then you can see the picture on the left, it looks like a dog or something went through there, and you can see how thick the mud is from the paw prints. Then the last part here, and this is, wet and it needs some help, but it's like not the biggest priority basically, but it is by the other playground and by where the pool is in the community garden. This is interesting because I found that there are a lot of drains and manholes over there. So one thing that can be done here that's kind of interesting is, for example, you could put a rain garden in that's above the drain, height-wise, so that if some of the water either gets captured before it hits the drain, and then Ted Chase went into the woods and he found where this water goes, so he found like the drain that it goes to. So basically reducing the amount of rain or water that goes into that drain is going to really reduce the ponding that actually happens all the way across the way. So that was
The reason why that catch basin and that manhole are there is because there used to be a road there.
Oh, really? Oh,
So,
okay.
so Stoddard Street ran
Makes sense,
through
right?
the park until the park was reconstructed in 2003.
Oh, interesting.
So there was a
That
road
makes
there.
sense. Yeah.
Because we were very confused, they weren't wisely located.
Because
Like,
there
why
was-
would they
there
put
was
the
a road that
drain
ran
up
through the-
here?
And it was a house.
It
There
makes
were two
sense.
houses.
Now it makes
Now
total
it makes sense.
Now it
And
makes
then,
total
and the
sense,
township
yeah.
obtained the two houses, knocked the houses down, abandoned and vacated the roads, and built the park, rebuilt the park in 2003, I think it was.
It's really Bob Medler. of you,
Interesting,
Robert.
There
yeah,
you go.
that's good to know, because it didn't make sense where they were. But in this area, one thing we were thinking, so you can see where there's some mud and ponding, and I'll show it in a minute, but this is an area where basically just routing the water to those existing manholes, and not through, any serious engineering, but just through some basic, like, simple grading could really kind of solve a lot of problems. So when we went and we met together on the 27th, we walked all this area, we looked at the recommendations, and basically prioritized it into 3 areas. So A and B are now priority number 1, which is the most flooded section. Priority priority number 2 is area D, and priority 3 is C. Let me show it to you because it probably doesn't make that much sense at this point. But now again, these are just conceptual at this point, these are not to scale. So just like, so you're aware of that. Priority 1 is where the major ponding and flooding is happening. So our thoughts was, maybe we can dig maybe like a little trench alongside the pond there and put some stone in it or dirt to kind of like soak up that water and prevent it from getting back on the pond. The circle you see there is that fitness equipment area, so we're basically thinking remove the fitness area and put a rain garden there. There's no point in putting anything there because it's constant, like we know now, it is always submerged. And then just maybe putting in some more trees that are appropriate for soaking up water, for example, that's one idea. And then, yeah, and then you can see this little thing here. I was trying to find a shape that looked like a rain garden. It's not that great to find a shape for, but that is the rain garden area. That's right by where the standing water is. I said water, water. And then, I know. And then the triangles really are just what we're calling simple grading and rerouting, and that's really, again, just digging a trench and kind of routing it to the existing drain or routing it to the rain garden. So not any heavy duty work, but that's really the point of green infrastructure anyway.
The fitness area that you said you were going to remove, did you plan on putting it somewhere else?
So Parks and Rec right now is replacing their fitness area, so I haven't walked this with Bo yet or Carl. They are aware of it, but I'll tell you what the plan is, but they're going to be very involved with citing where that should be, so they'll pick a new place for it, for sure. But right there, it's just unusable, totally unusable. So then priority 2 is the playground area that is kind of in between the pool and Mark over there. This is kind of interesting. The reason it's priority 2 is because we have the $20,000 grant. We have to spend some money in priority number 1. This area, though, is not going to require a lot of money. I think it's going to require some labor, but we can do it because a lot of it is rerouting it to the existing drains that are already there. So Vanessa, for example, was in the area you'll see down here. It's really, if we can like pull out some of that vegetation and like kind of just dig a trench that leads the water to the drain, then it will stop coming onto the path. So that's an easy fix. The other thing about putting trees in this area is that there's really no shade on the playground as it is, so that also gives some shade, but it will also soak up some of the water that goes back there and prevent it from kind of like this effect. And then priority 3 is by the baseball and the dugout. The rain garden you see there, which is that like semi-circle shape, Originally, I was thinking to put it in between the bleachers and the dugout, and then one of the people that was with us, Jignasha, said, and it was a great point, that people probably like put chairs and things in between there and don't, you know, so putting it behind the bleachers actually will capture more of the water at the down slope and prevent it from coming down to the bleachers. And it also is like a nice, you know, it adds kind of, you know, some color and some, you know, just like some aesthetically pleasing area over there. And again, this is another area where just some simple regrading is gonna be helpful. The circle you see there, those are those two fitness equipment. They don't have to be, I mean, they can be replaced in place, but maybe just some different material at the bottom that's better for water. Like right now it's wood chips, maybe it's something else. I'm gonna have to talk to DPW and figure that out. So those are the recommendations for that. Now, again, they're just conceptual, but the next step to tell is this. So the next step is, I basically took green infrastructure from Dr. Abrupta at Rutgers. So that's where like I'm getting like these ideas from. I contacted him and asked him if he would meet us at the site after he reviewed the report. So he reviewed the report and he said he thinks it's sound, because I basically wanted to verify is it sound, like science-wise and also like actual construction-wise. He thinks all of this is sound, but he wants to come to the site, so we're going to meet with him next week on the site. Then after that, because I don't want to, you know, tell Bo or Carl something that is like makes no sense. You know what I mean? I want them to feel comfortable knowing that we vetted it and made sure it's correct and that it's doable. So then right after that, or if they want to come at the same time, you're welcome. Then we can walk with them and discuss like, okay, do you think DPW can do this? You know, if not, what do we need to do? Is this, what is better? You know, I want to make sure everyone's kind of on board. And then simultaneously, we're going to be having the public information session. So that's where Councilman Wright we've been talking with, to kind of make sure we can talk to people in the area. So we want them to understand why we're doing what we're doing. And if they are 100% against something, they might turn around and say, I don't want you to put a rain garden here because this is where I like to have a picnic or something, you know? So it's important to get their input and their feedback and see if they understand. But we want to really make sure people understand, like, we're not just coming in and digging up a random trench, because green infrastructure is not uniform. Sometimes you might walk by and be like, why is there a rain garden here? Why is there 3 trees here but none over here? But it's because it's for a reason. So we want to really make sure that's understandable. So that's the plan. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and then we'll have, you know, much more specific detail on these projects instead of just the concept.
We're not doing this until next year, am I correct?
Yeah. Next year. Right now, the thing we're really trying to finish this year is the conceptual drawings, getting the proof that we know what we're doing is correct, and also getting the word out to the public and making sure that they're on board with it. And, you know, we figured maybe we could go out there a few times to Naaman Williams. We could maybe have something here.
What's this going to cost?
So we have the $20,000 grant. It's going to, so the green infrastructure, we could probably do most of the green infrastructure for the $20,000, but then we won't have any money left for the conceptual. Yeah, so we have to think about, that's one thing when we talk to Carl and Bo.
We could use open space.
Well, no, it's parks, yeah, so we would just include it in, as a line item in the budget, yes.
Stop spending money.
The 20,000 is just a supplement to our open space.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we got to figure out, you know, how much can we get done for the 20,000? You know, there's going to be permitting and everything involved with that Woodlands Trail, which that alone can eat up a lot of it.
And that's my concern, is because I think that to do work in the Woodland Trail, I mean, you see the pictures of what that area is. I've been in that area personally, and my concern is that the DEP is going to have some issues with the fact that it is wetlands, and it's an encroachment on wetlands, no matter how we look at it. You know, this was a fantastic grant to get. This was the most that was offered. You know, we were one of 5 in the state that got this grant. So, but it is really, we should look at it as a seed money. And this is not to solve the problem. You see the problem. That problem has existed since the park, you know, since just after the park was reconstructed. I mean, there's lots of things I take responsibility for, but I was just a cop in 2003, not designing parks or getting them built. There are issues that need to be addressed. To make the park fully functional, these things need to be addressed. But we also did crime prevention through environmental design,
Yep.
right? We did that study that was part of a Rutgers, was involved in that study. And some of these things that Tara's talking about are actually kind of taken from that study as well. So this is kind of twice that this has gone through the study process. It's interesting, when you talk about, go back to where you talked about the last, priority item.
This one here?
No, I'm sorry, that one there. So this area here was a large part of the discussion about crime prevention. And there were a lot of mixed feelings from the public about that particular area and what things were recommended. It's funny that you're recommending more trees in that area.
Yeah.
Well, more trees were also recommended in the crime prevention
Right.
study, but the people who live in the apartments there didn't want more trees at that time. So there was this kind of mixed emotion thing with that. So I think that, and I wanted that, so we're going to have public sessions.
Yes, we're
Where?
there. Well, so probably we want to go there for sure.
Well, that's why I wanted
Yeah.
to have at least one in that building.
Yes.
Because they have a community room there, so we need to have at least one there.
Yeah.
Just to understand the trees versus no trees, I'm trying to understand. They don't want the trees because they just...
Well, there were
trees,
two
or
different-
is it because
No, this is.
people
it
can
had
hide
nothing-
behind trees? and-
Right, well, no, it's funny, they didn't want to see the illegal activity, but then they wanted to see the illegal activity. You know what I mean? Like, they wanted to be able to see it
To
so they
report
could
it.
report it, but they really didn't want to see it, so the trees would have kind of, but yeah, so it was, I mean, no one was right or wrong in what they were saying. It was just an interesting kind of dynamic that went on in that public discussion about why we should or should not increase the vegetation really right along here,
Yeah.
right? And so,
And what height are you proposing? Like, are you talking about bushes or are you talking about actual trees?
No, actual trees. So they
Trees.
would be taller trees. They have to be a certain type of, there's many types, but, soak up the water, but also, yeah, I mean, we couldn't have them there. I mean, they don't have to be fully grown when we plant them, but ultimately, yes, they're
but
gonna be,
the goal is to do.
Yeah.
Mostly weeping willows and things.
yeah.
But that's a silly argument. I mean,
Trees,
trees
shallow root, that's the
won't
only thing.
encourage or prevent
But you don't live there.
crimes. It doesn't matter.
Right, so, but
Planting
understanding, you
trees
can
is
say that it's
not
silly.
gonna have
You can
any
say it's silly,
impact on
but it's
crime
not silly to the
whatsoever.
person
Yeah.
who's expressing their
That's a silly
position.
argument.
Well,
to
the
me.
space that you're saying that they were pushing back against the trees is actually the space between the building
But
and
they
that
just didn't want
path.
to block off the park from, they didn't want to have it.
They didn't want to not see
They
the
didn't want
park.
to not see the park.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, right, I would see the part you were saying, like, to the left of the path,
Yeah.
blocking the visibility from their homes. I could
Right.
see the desire more there than already on the other side of that path.
Are there cameras in the park?
There will be. Part of the.
I mean,
part of-
that's
It's what,
the obvious, solution to that. Like I said, trees are not going to encourage or.
That's a tricky part. That's a tricky part.
The Woodlands Trail idea came from the crime prevention study. That was actually recommended to reduce crime in the Woodlands area by having it be more well-used. But we don't know how the residents will react to that, so, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I didn't want to speak. When you sit up, when you sit up here, this is a building. When you sit out front here and you see the parking lot here, you could actually look over and see everything around here. Now, what could be a problem? Walking around here talking to the neighbors,
And not knowing.
this over here was where the dope was. And over here, you can see the bush there, there's a play area over here. Now, half of of what Bob says is okay, half of what you say is okay, but for me, if you put trees up there, I can't see into the park. But you have the bushes here you see right here. If you put a little more, if you had more bushes or something like that, or little trees or whatever you want to call them,
Yeah.
I can see into the park and be happy. But when you put something else I can't see, and you got you're looking through the forest, I wouldn't like it, because again, I'm sitting out here and I'm catching some rays. I'm in a wheelchair. I want to look at something.
Right.
And again, I got a park in my backyard. I want to see the
You wanna
park.
see it. Well, that's why it's important to have the, because, so we don't live there, and that's 100% true. So that's something though that can be addressed. Maybe then if we move, if that comes out as a big concern, we could take those trees and like replace them with bushes and move them closer in, like.
Because it is on a
Yeah.
slant.
You can plant trees that grow 15 feet tall. I mean, you don't have to plant
Yeah.
trees that grow 40 feet tall.
The main issue is we want to make sure that what we're doing first, like I said, number one, is it sound and is it feasible? But we also want to make sure that we're making it comfortable and enjoyable for the people that use it the most. So having these public information sessions, I think we envisioned, Vanessa, most of them would be over at Nathan Williams or in the area. So,
And keeping in mind the safety factor.
absolutely, yep.
And the fact this all came out of that crime prevention study, right? So before we even started working on this, that was a big piece, was a nice pathway in. Because even the Woodland Trail, which was the initial idea, because I had that idea before even knowing that was township property.
Right.
So I reached out to Tara saying, hey, looking for wooded areas, smaller parcels of wooded areas in our densely populated parts of town to make accessible. And then Tara was like, well, we own that.
Yeah.
I was like, we own that. So
Yeah.
even in that crime prevention, right, it recommends the Woodland Trail, and we might have to, like, the whole time we've been saying, we need to talk to the community, we need to talk to the community, we don't, just because we think it's a good idea,
Right.
we don't want to impose it. But I think there's some possibilities even for the woodland area to maybe
Yeah,
make
there
it
is. I mean, there might be
smaller,
some
to
possibilities,
kinda
but then you
just
have the
keep it-
development that's
Yeah.
on the other side of it that has
Yeah.
concerns about
Yeah.
people coming and going through their community into the park through that trail. So there was that concern too.
Yeah. The first real thing is we have to address the flooding and ponding issue before
Yeah.
we really do anything.
That's
So
the
if we
most
can get
important
that done.
thing. To make the
and,
park functional, that
yeah.
needs to be done first
For sure.
before anything else.
And then, so again, we're gonna meet with Dr. Abrupta, anyone who wants to come is welcome. I think I sent you the invite, but I'll send it to you again, yep. And then if you want, anyone who wants to come is welcome, and I think he'll have a lot of great insight. And then we'll start having these meetings, and then we can move forward.
Alrighty.
That's that.
That's that.
The wildlife grant, we talked about that already for Van Wickle?
Yeah, so Van Wickle, we planted, it was 416 plants that we got as a grant through the National Wildlife Federation. And we planted them all on Saturday. And we mulched it and everything, looks beautiful. And it's a native garden and it has pollinator plants. So I'll be submitting that for the mayor's monarch butterfly pledge as well. So we're moving on that, but that's really nice. Looks
When's
good.
the next tee?
We have an event
See,
this
I
weekend.
told you. See, I'm stumping it for you there, Terry.
So that's it.
Okay,
For that,
all right.
yeah.
Next thing on the list is Memorial Forest, and I asked her to put this on. The subcommittee of the forest met out there recently, and we came up with some with some long-term and short-term goals, and short-term goals need to be done ASAP, we feel. First thing is to mow the grass and weeds around all the trees that are there in the front. The county does a nice job. Their property line. The town has not maintained anything around going into in around the trees that are there. That needs to get done ASAP.
That's the roadway tree.
The roadway going in, correct. The fence is down, it's broken down. It's there. We need to get the signs replaced and the fence
All
replaced.
the signs are being replaced.
Yeah,
When?
signs are being worked on.
Well, I know that you don't think that this is true, but our Public Works Department is a little busy And signs oftentimes are not the priority over road repairs and taking down trees that are creating a hazard. So they're preparing this, and they have been replacing the park signs throughout the entire town, one at a time. So it entails not only just making a new sign, but replacing the posts and anything that goes along with it. And if you go right around town, you'll see where those have been done.
Well, we'd like to see that get done sooner or later out there. And like I say, the corner fences are all
And I would like to see potholes repaired, and that's going to be how priorities get set, Bob.
Well, if the sign is...
I'd like to see peace in the Middle East.
Me too.
Amen.
Yeah.
And in the Open Space Committee.
Go ahead.
The other item we come up with is there's trees missing along where they had died and missing along the driveways. We figured there's 10 trees that can be planted there, so we need to get those, they should be planted this fall. That'd be a nice thing to get done. Shade tree as tree, however we get it done, let's get it done again. I know Public Works is busy, but we should have...
And we're already planting trees, 32 trees on Ridings Parkway right now. That's going to take probably at least a week to get all that work done as they're removing shrubs and planting all the trees on that. That was part of a tree replacement and improvement project that was done after a meeting of the residents and elected officials about a month and a half ago. So that's a project that started today, and that's going to take them a while, and that's the team that's planting trees. I also have to have a discussion with the Shade Tree Chairman tomorrow, hopefully, about 40 trees that are, 40, you know nothing about this, Arnie, so I'm telling you now, about 40 trees that are replacement trees being provided by Public Service and planted by a contractor for Public Service that I hope to have done on JFK Boulevard in the upcoming week or two. And any other trees that are going to get planted at this time are whatever we can get done before the first frost.
So, I did receive an email from Steve about the PSE&G trees, so I am aware of that.
I'm not quite sure how you received it from Steve, because I don't know, I never got a chance to tell Steve yet. And I only know it from Carl from about 3 days ago.
And I think Mary probably received it also.
Connor notified us.
Yeah, so it was 50 trees, I believe, Mary.
40.
40.
Anyway.
Well, okay, whatever. 40,
40.
50, whichever, okay. 45 trees.
40, go ahead.
I'm only reading what my
40
chairman
trees and
sent
5
us.
bushes.
Anyway, so he asked for suggestions. Now, when Bob and I went out yesterday looking at Memorial Forest, we talked about those trees going up the roadway there. We also looked in the back in Memorial Forest, way in the back there, where there's a possibility of planting trees where we've talked about it. We talked about where we want to do the trail going out to Elizabeth Avenue, possibly lining that with trees. As far as JFK is concerned, this is one of my comments, was that, and I know this is a gift from PSE&G of 40 trees, that will probably come close to sufficing what we need there. But before we do that, there are still trees that need to come down over there that are in bad shape.
And they're going to be removed
Right.
and replaced.
And so...
And I inspected JFK Boulevard on Thursday,
Mhm.
and it's not as earth-ending as it would seem that is being portrayed. There are a couple dead trees, and most of them are thriving. By my own observation and inspection, not because somebody told me so. So let's not make this more than it is, and that's not open space. I'm telling you that if you want to talk about planting trees on open space, now I've been jumping through hoops for the last 2 months to deal with forestry plans, maintenance plans, planting plans, getting quotes from engineers to provide that from certified tree experts, and all that will be provided. Costs associated with those will be provided, but if you want trees planted on open space, we've talked about Memorial Forest and the need to develop a plan. A planting plan, which I've explained in great detail to the certified tree expert at CME, who's going to provide the cost estimates to develop those plans. So we talk about not putting the cart before the horse, but then we come here and talk about putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, I'm not.
Let's develop a plan for the memorial forest, as we've discussed here on more than one occasion, and that will involve planting trees that then can be purchased by someone who wishes to donate money to dedicate the tree to someone. And a tree that's been planted and has been proven to be able to survive, rather than buying a tree and putting it in a hole and then it dies 6 months later, which is what we don't want, right? So all of those things are being done. So I guess I'm lost here in that, once again, we're going to have this discussion about what we should or shouldn't do. I can tell Public Works to tell Public Service that we don't want them now and come see us in the spring. And we won't plant them anywhere. The issue is, and I was going to raise it with the Shade Tree Chairman, and that was, do you want to move forward now, since Public Services contractor has contacted us and said they want to move rapidly and get them planted in the fall, and we know that we need to plant these trees on JFK Boulevard to fill in the voids and replace the dead trees. We can put them there now, or we can discuss this till it's at the next Shade Tree Commission meeting, and by then we'll be planting them in the spring.
And that was part of what I said in my response to Steve, is that we planted all these trees on JFK, and we're talking about two different things here. The memorial forest stuff, Bob, I agree with you 100%. The JFK thing, we planted a lot of trees there, and there's certain trees that we know that do not survive there, and they're dying.
Mm-hmm.
And you can look at them. I was out there last week with Bob Hudak. The tops of the trees, a lot of the trees are dying. They're not survivable when the tops of the trees are dying. They're just not. They need to come down. But that's why we've been asking to have that CME person to go out there.
Well, no, the CME person, do you understand? They get paid. All right, that's not part of being the township engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've done, and what I've reported to both Shade Tree and to you, is that I've provided a detailed need list to CME based on input from your chairman, okay, as to what we need to have developed for the town, as far as planting plans to include memorial forest, and tree inventory to include all street trees and develop park trees, so that we know what we have, all right, and all of those things are forthcoming as far as quotes for the development of those plans. This is not something that I had them say, develop the plans. I got to find out how much it's going to cost first. And the Shade Tree Commission is going to have to decide whether or not to move forward based on that cost.
The
cost to develop those plans.
Oh, okay, yeah. Again, I mean, that's all well and good. Again, I'm talking specifically about the PSE&G trees
I am too.
and JFK Boulevard, and as to whether we are ready, because we don't know, what trees to plant where.
We tell them what trees we want them to buy, and that's what they'll plant. And so that's why I was going to have a conversation with the Shade Tree Chairman because timeliness is of issue now. We don't have enough time to wait until your next meeting.
Well, unless we decide to plant them in the spring.
Well, I think
Also, doesn't that have a lot to
emails went
do-
around, so like we got input.
It also has to do with the fact that we went through a severe drought one year. This year, we had record rainfall.
Mhm.
I don't think it has anything to do with the trees. I think it has to do with the stress on the trees.
Well, I think that you
due to-
should attend a Shade Tree Commission meeting, not an open space meeting, and tell them that. Because this is not, we're way off topic again. The topic is not, if you want to say that we should plant the public service trees at Memorial Forest, if that's why this discussion came up about the public service trees, then so be it. That doesn't sound, though, that from shaking heads down at the end of the table, that that's not the case. So
It was a possibility. It was
So
just a possibility.
my recommendation to this committee as it is in reference to Memorial Forest, my recommendation is we're supposed to be developing a planting plan. So rather than plant trees there right now, that was the goal of the Shade Tree Commission, working in conjunction with Open Space, is develop a planting plan.
And Bob, I'm in full agreement. I have no problem. Bob and I did discuss, Bob Huskus and I did discuss the possibility of planting trees there, but I don't, that doesn't have to happen now, especially since you are developing this plan. That's great. My big concern is with, again, throwing good money after bad, and I know it's PSG&G's money, but
It's not pointless.
But we don't want to, I'm one person speaking from Shade Tree, you're gonna have your discussion with Steve tomorrow. But we've seen what's happened where they planted a bunch of trees there and a lot of them have not worked out. So we wanna make sure that the right trees are planted in the right places.
Well, short term there, is there any chance when, first chance Public Works gets on other busy, to at least mow around
Yeah,
the trees?
well, absolutely.
Get that mowed, that'd be a good start.
So understand that also for every Saturday since Labor Day, every day since Labor Day, when they would be working on open space properties doing maintenance, it's been pouring rain. And guess what it's gonna do this Saturday?
It's gonna rain.
Nor'easter.
I understand that.
And that's literally, it's, I gotta tell you, I bought, you know what I do on weekends, and I haven't done it at all on
Go fishing.
weekends. Because every weekend since Labor Day weekend, it has rained on Saturdays. So I can't have them out there on open space, and I want to, and we want to get them out there to do it. So the answer is absolutely, we can talk about getting the trees trimmed and mowed in that front area of the park, of the open space.
Now,
Yes.
going back to a plan, this committee spent, how many years ago, was a lot of money developing a plan for Mower Forest. Wherever those plans are at,
So the plan, I think what I've asked them to do is come up with a cost estimate to develop a planning plan at Memorial Forest that's very small in scale. All that we're looking for right now is the type of tree and a scheme for planting for spacing purposes based on the type of tree that makes sense in that back area that we had talked about. I identified it on a map, Tara provided it to CME as well. And that was
2 acres. It's about
yeah,
two acres.
I tried to kind of dumb it down and make it as basic as it could be. It's not talking about walking trails and benches or anything like that, just really creating a forest, right? And that, because that's kind of, so that's what they're coming up with the cost estimate to develop that plan too. We gave them everything. I'm hoping that I have it on Thursday, the cost estimates.
So there was one other part of this. When Bob and I were out there, he was in his four-wheeler truck, and that road is not, if people want to go back there to visit their trees.
They do, but, and that's gonna have to be gravelled when the
Yeah.
time comes that we
Yeah.
develop it back there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's easy.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, no, that's easy.
But also we had talked about the possibility of when you get to the tree line, after going up the road and you get to the tree line, doing a parking lot, or a small parking lot on one side or the other. So that's just.
And that, we would do that in-house too, so.
Yeah.
All right, moving on, the local health assessment,
1.3 acres.
technical assessment grant?
So the local health assessment report is done. It's in the final report, has been reviewed. It's going to the steering committee on October 26th. We're having a meeting about it. And then we'll be doing a presentation at the November 13th council meeting. And we'll be inviting, open space, trails, all of our committees, commissions, boards.
See, we talked about doing it at the upcoming council meeting, but I figured the liaison to the environmental commission wanted to be there for it.
Probably.
So we pushed it off to November. Councilmember Potosnik,
Yeah.
you're welcome.
But it's set, it is set, and, so the steering committee will review it first, because they've been really involved in helping out with that.
Can we
And
put
then,
it at the next
that's
council
it.
meeting today? I'm like, no, we
Yeah,
can't.
you want to be there, yeah,
I
understandable.
kind
You
of
want
have
it
to
there.
have
You
the
want it there.
environmental commission
Yeah.
councilman there. Thank you. You're
Is it
welcome.
really-
When is
I
this?
was looking out.
So the presentation will be on November 13th as part of the council meeting. And the report itself will be made available to the public right after that. We're not going to be going through the entire report, during the presentation, just because it's so lengthy, but I'll do a summary of kind of the highlights,
So just so you know, Mayor,
Very
what she was
interesting.
just talking about is the
You'll like
health
it.
assessment that you and I have talked about in the past will be presented to council at the November 13th council meeting.
Great.
Update on the open space plan and the recreation plan?
So we
We had a meeting today
We
about
did.
that, actually.
Bob and Mark Healy, the township planner, and I met today, and we were looking at some properties and we're trying to figure out what should be on the Rossi, what's missing off of the recreation open space inventory Rossi. And so we made a lot of progress today. We met for quite a few hours, went through a lot of properties that are municipally owned, but we were figuring out, should they be on the Rossi, should they not? And so we kind of went through that, and that's really the first step of figuring it out. The next step for the open space plan portion is that we have to really go finish that exercise and then go through the mapping and figure out.
Identify which ones we would like to pursue, either for farmland preservation or for acquisition.
Yep.
So what we did today was we looked at every single parcel that, well, one of the functions of our meeting today was to determine what parcels of municipally owned land were ideal for diversion, for our diversion of done. We came up with a good solid list of properties that make sense both from an environmental standpoint and from a kind of a buffer standpoint from, like, there's properties left that we own that would buffer residential zones along I-287. There's municipally owned land that encompasses Sealy's Run and DeRussi's Brook that would preserve those areas and the tree canopy and the forested areas. Some properties that are adjacent to existing open space properties and that are on the Rossi that are just municipally owned that would provide a further area surrounding that to avoid any future development, so that we came up with a good list and exceeded what we believe will be the need to meet, that we need to meet for the diversion. So,
Can you add Tulipwood into that or not?
Tulipwood is already on the list.
Okay.
Yeah, so Tulipwood.
No, I mean for diversion. Just a question.
No, that's a fair question. It's been asked by many people of me. It would be of significant cost to the town, because while done is basically being done by acreage, in all likelihood the state would require us to do Tulipwood by dollar value, and that gets into costly. Would love to do it, because I would love to see someone take it, you put a historic easement on it and let them put something in there. But again, part of the problem is that it's also on the state and federal registers. So it's one that would require work to be done inside that's in conformance with the standards.
Yeah. This exercise though kind of did kill two birds with one stone for the most part, because we were really looking for the done mitigation properties, but through that we really went through all the properties and really looked at it.
Now, the diversion property you looked at today.
I know, and I'm sorry.
Do they,
Amber says I was late.
the state require one big chunk, or you have to?
No, it's not one big chunk.
It could be spread out.
It could be spread out. It doesn't have to be like an 8-acre parcel. It could be a half an acre here, 3 acres here, and just as long as it adds up to the total that they need.
Whatever they want,
Right.
You don't have to be a continuous big piece of property, it could be a whole little one.
Like I said,
Can we raise money by having scratch offs in the town?
Sure.
Okay.
So that was like I said, a very, and we'll meet again to go over, and so we're also going to bring in the gentleman who works in our IT department who does all the mapping, and he has all that, and can just kind of massage everything to give us what we need as far as mapping is concerned, to show us what parcels are and ownership and all of that. And then Scott Thomas, who works in the engineering department, who's the senior engineer in the engineering department, also kind of help us out on this path to get everything in order, so that the committee can kind of review everything and not wait until the end of next year to wrap it up. Let's wrap it up earlier than when we have to, is the goal.
There's one more thing to add to this.
Go ahead.
So actually, Councilman Potasnik has a resolution that he wants to discuss.
Yes.
I put copies on the table.
It's long, so.
I can give you the high level.
So I'm sure the council member can give us a synopsis.
So, you may know this or you may not, so back in 2014,
Yeah.
65% of voters supported a constitutional amendment to take a little bit of the business tax and put it into an open space, farmland, forest, and parks, as well as historic site preservation fund. So that's been great. That means the more the businesses earn, the more money that's in there. Additionally, there was a surcharge that was added to companies that made over $1 million in profits of 2.5%. That generates $60 million for those programs and also other environmental programs like underground storage tanks, contaminated site remediation. That is scheduled to sunset at the end of this year. So the Open Space Trust will lose $48 million. Currently, it's funded at $200 million plus this $48 million. So groups like New Jersey LCV and the Keep It Green Coalition, which is working on this with the Association for New Jersey Environmental Commissions, is looking for towns and municipal commissions to basically urge the legislature to keep, to not sunset that funding. That's basically what this says. So that's what the resolution talks about.
And
Not raise the
environmental-
cost, but keep it.
Just keep it where it's at, not let it sunset.
Correct.
Okay.
Keep it where it is.
This
Okay.
resolution, this is the Franklin specific one that you
Yeah.
sent, so I updated it with your comments.
So I added, Franklin Township has 35% open space, and we have a lot of identified properties on the
Yeah.
target priority list. And we need funding from the state for Green
Yeah.
Acres and Blue Acres to do that work.
Renewals in every achievement.
And the Environmental Commission passed the same resolution last night. So the Environmental Commission passed it, if Open Space will pass it, and then the council will pass it, it will all go to the legislature, which is really impactful to get numerous, resolutions. And it is important because we do need that money to
When
preserve
does this have to
properties.
go in, or is there a time frame for this?
Well, they after the election, they go into lame duck. And so depending, the microphones are listening, they obviously didn't keep it in place in the last budget. They didn't do anything because it didn't expire at the time, but they didn't address what would happen at the end of December. Folks are thinking that maybe after the election, they'll have more of an appetite to keep that in place. Some folks would look at that as an increase, but it's actually level funding, just keeping that surcharge in
The
place.
reason I ask is, mentions ag, and we haven't had a meeting to discuss this. so-
Oh, yeah, I'll get it to ag. So last night we saw it for the first time tonight, and then I'm gonna get it to Trails and Ag for the
When
next
is that
time.
next meeting?
First Thursday
Oh.
of November.
Yeah.
We're meeting in November, am I correct?
Yeah, as far as
Yes.
I know, yeah.
So
Yeah,
we have
I'll
time,
get
I'm
there.
good, just we have time. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
just-
yeah, I'll
okay,
get it there,
okay.
yep.
This is going before council.
Not yet, but it should if we get support.
Yeah. I figured I would send the EC's resolution that they approved, and if OSAC approves, I can send that along with the resolution for council so they can see the other signers of it.
But is the corporate business tax is used for hazardous site cleanup?
Yeah, so it's 6%, I don't know the numbers. Some percentage, and then of that percentage, another percentage that goes to open space. So I can get you the exact numbers, but it's.
That doesn't seem right.
Well, so when we were looking for how to a fund to constitutionally dedicate to make sure open space funding was reliable, because it had been bonds before, that was the identified source. So corporate business tax was already being collected, no change to the percentage, and of the amount that was collected, said percentage would go to environmental programs, and of that would go to open spaces, historic farms, farmland, forests. Yeah. And then the surcharge.
I'm not against it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, as a former DEP employee who was involved in hazardous waste cleanups, I never heard of open space funding.
It's not open space funding, it's a portion of the corporate business tax
But
funds
it's
that
usually
part.
spill fund, it's usually, I'm glad.
Give me a motion to pass this resolution.
I'll make a motion to pass the resolution.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
Motion passed.
Passed unanimously.
Okay, great.
And I have one other thing on the old business. I talked last month about the SADC soil protection standards. They extended their comment period to November the 6th, I think it was.
Yeah, November
And they had a public hearing virtually 2-3 weeks ago. Anybody talked, a couple people talked in favor of it, most of the people talked against it. Somerset County Board of Ag is having a question and answer period next Thursday night at the 4-H building on Milltown Road. If anybody's interested in showing up, I don't think there'd be a problem with that, because the public can be there. I'm going to get a State Board of Ag meeting on Tuesday with some other farmers to put a little heat on the State Board about this issue. And the same thing's gonna happen probably at the SADC meeting on Wednesday. So it's still rearing its ugly head. They're not backing down any, and there's gonna be, in the next day or two, I'm gonna file a right to farm issue against the state, against the SADC, because it's against the right to farm ordinance, and our town ordinance and the state one, the dirt protection standards. Because they're basically telling me I cannot add another building. They came out and we looked at my map, the map they sent, and kind of tidied it up a little bit, but they're telling me I can't put another building up unless they tear one down. So if I want to expand our operation, for whatever reason, can't do it. So it's a right to farm issue.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the update on that.
And we did send our comments in, yeah.
Our letters all went in?
All
Okay.
went in, yeah. When I went to submit them, I realized they had extended it, which made me think they must be getting a lot of comments. So I did speak to someone at the SADC, and they said they're just getting inundated with comments daily, so.
Well, the only thing that I find interesting about what they're doing is, and Fish and Wildlife did the same thing on the bear issue, is that all the comments are coming in, and they're gonna basically, okay, these people said this and these people said that. They're not going to answer everybody's comments. They're going to just categorize them and answer them in that way,
Yeah.
which makes somewhat sense. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Moving on, consultant's monthly activity report. Anybody got questions for Tara, what she's been doing besides working her butt off?
Trying, yep. It's on the table if anyone needs a printout.
I motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All right, all in favor, I'm going to make it legal. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Updates from other committees. I'll start with Ag. Ag didn't meet, so that one's short and sweet. Arnie, you got anything from your committees? I usually do.
We have-
I talked about the shade tree stuff.
Okay.
That's what I was gonna talk about.
Talk about it again.
Please, one more time.
One more time.
All right, hold on a second. Let me just get my notes back out. I'm doing
Anybody, all the committees have anything to report?
On the rec committee, for the last 3 weeks, we've been scheduled cleanup, but it's been raining, so we're gonna try to get in this week, but every Saturday we.
Good luck on that, John. It's okay.
Hey, John, I got a rain shirt on you.
Clean up on what?
Parks.
We got a 7-day residence.
So horrible.
Matter of fact, there's a lot of bottles and a lot of tires, different places, and we're gonna try to clean it up.
No voting,
Away
huh?
when it gets cold.
It's gonna be, they're
All
saying,
right,
we're
if
gonna
there's no other
say it's gonna
updates,
keep
we'll
coming.
move on to
It's gonna be
public
snow.
comment.
You must be starving. You can't catch fish to eat.
We have a motion to open the public comment.
Motion?
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting open to the public.
Okay, Terry Thorson, 18 Levette Drive. I'm a member of the Meadows Association. I want to thank Vanessa and Tara for coming out and helping with the garden, because until I hurt my knee, I did that all by myself. And it's quite a bit to do. As far as the flooding goes down there, after Ida, I spent a whole day with insurance people, and I think Public Works knows that the hot water heater went out, the stove was dead, the refrigerator floated 3 feet away from the wall. In the Vagano Center, which is the bathroom that we normally keep open 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, and clean for the public, the sink lifted up off the wall, floated across the room. So that's been inoperable since Ida. So with the funds that we have from the grants, hopefully these things will get repaired. And the people who use the towpath to walk and to bike will be able to use that again. Was there anything else I want to say? Basically, the other thing I wanted to say was, we do have an event coming up this Sunday.
I let you into that
He led me right into that. It's Franklin Park Tragedy. This is a book that was written about 2019. I read it when it first came out. It's about an incident that happened in Franklin Park about 125 years ago. And it's something we just don't want anything like this to happen again. You get a chance to see the Hagen House. You can see where the dead birds are. If you go into the, I don't know.
They are delicious, by the way.
Oh, if you go into the, not so much the horse barn, which is the big yellow maybe
The cow
walk around.
barn is
Or
where
if you
they're
go in
at.
the cow barn, you step on skeletons all over the place.
Does everybody get to take one home for free?
You can have them, yeah, you can have, actually, what will happen
Halloween.
in not too, well, a few months from now, they've already left, but if you come back in the springtime, you can see all the birds coming back, because they nest underneath the horse barn. We've got swallows that come in. The swallows come back to Hageman like Capistrano. So, if anybody wants to see this, I'll just leave these here, and you could
Thanks, Terry.
check out what's going on, and we'd be glad to have you, and give you a tour of the house. I unfortunately will be in the Berkshires this weekend, so I won't be there. But I will be for the following one, the end of October, which is about witches.
Oh.
It is.
Yeah, witches.
It's an interesting book if you haven't read it.
It's a little hard to read.
Okay.
A little.
If there's no other public comment, we'd like to motion to close public.
Close.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? All right, next on the agenda is executive session.
Yep.